Inside the Tylenol investigation, the past 40 years has seen a battalion of police, state and federal agents, and forensic experts dwindle down to a few faithful who have kept one eye out for possible leads and one finger on the pulse of James Lewis, their longtime prime suspect. With Lewis now 76 years old, potential witnesses aging or already gone, and old evidence, there is a race against the clock to bring charges if they are ever to be brought. Cheryl?
Yeah, Chuck, and memories are fading as each day passes. We all remember exactly where we were at that time. I was a junior in college down at the University of Illinois. There was widespread panic. You talked about James Lewis, the only possible suspect that they've had in this investigation. He now lives in Massachusetts and has long denied being involved in this, and he has never been charged. What are they talking about when it comes to James Lewis today?
Well, certainly he's the only prime suspect for decades. There were a few early on as the authorities were just getting going, but Lewis clearly the focus of the investigation for most of the 4 decades. He's been lately living outside of Boston and Cambridge, Massachusetts. He doesn't do much. He has written a book. He's had a podcast. He is interviewed from time to time, always telling the same story, that he may have been the Tylenol extortionist, sending a demand letter for $1 million from Johnson & Johnson, but that he had nothing to do with the killings. The authorities who have worked this certainly don't believe that, but there's a difference between believing something and being able to prove it to a jury in court and win a case.
Yeah, and investigators talk about lack of physical proof. There's also been the word circumstantial evidence for a chargeable case. Now, of course, he has admitted reportedly to, of course, sending that extortion letter asking for $1 million. But today, Chuck, you know, what is the holdup? Is there enough evidence to charge anyone 40 years later?
Well, there certainly can be. There's no statute of limitations on murder, as we know, and almost every murder case is circumstantial evidence. It's very rare where you have an eyewitness to an actual murder as it's happening who can go into court and testify. And in this case, there weren't surveillance cameras to the extent that we see today. There were no witnesses who saw Lewis put the cyanide into the capsules, although perhaps the greatest evidence that has existed for more than 40 years are drawings that James Lewis made explaining how somebody could pack Tylenol capsules with cyanide using a pegboard. Of course, Lewis said he was merely trying to help investigators solve the case, that somebody else did it, but they certainly believe that the reason he knew how to do this was because he did it himself. Again, though, barring any new evidence that could tie all these loose ends together and take James Lewis into court, put him before a jury and see him convicted, that's not going to happen. Authorities, though, are inching closer to a decision where that could be the case.
And Chuck, there is that confusion over the postmark date over the letter that was actually sent when the reported deaths came into news reports. So there is evidence, but there's still pill boxes, there's bottles, there's boxes of evidence still 40 years later, and the Illinois State Police say they're still investigating. So it could possibly happen, and it could possibly not happen.
Well, that's very true. There will have to be a coming together of heads by the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, DuPage County, and then this throng of state and federal and local investigators who have followed this for 40 years now. They will have to come to a consensus that this is the right way to go. It's an unusual case because normally prosecutors have slam dunk cases that they take and put before a judge or before a jury. This is probably not going to be that. It will be a roll of the dice if they exactly try to charge James Lewis and take him to court.
You talked about some of the investigators passing away, some of the witnesses passing away. Chuck, what about these retired investigators? What drives them to continue to pursue this even 40 years later without a resolution?
This is one of those cases that haunts police. They don't like to have unsolved cases to begin with, but when you have something that was such a dastardly crime, these were unknowing victims who did something any of us could have done. They take a painkiller and all of a sudden, almost instantaneously, cyanide, which is a very fast-acting poison, it kills them, puts them on the floor, and they are dead. It's one of those cases that the police have a vested interest in bringing to a conclusion. They want somebody to pay for this.
Chuck, let's fast forward 40 years, 2022. We now know that pills and bottles have the tamper-resistant caps. that has been something that came out of the deaths of the people who had taken this Tylenol. And Johnson & Johnson, the parent company of Tylenol back then and now today, releasing a statement about safety is the #1 priority of their corporation.
Well, clearly, there were some good things that came out of this, that being one of them, the other just being the kind of the public eye toward things like this. People didn't do things quite as casually after the Tylenol murders. They thought a little bit more about things. They examined things more closely. And so some good things did come. But what you can't forget is that 7 people died in this. And so far, nobody has paid the price in state court for the crime of murder.
Chuck, before we close tonight, talk about the interviews that you had with James Lewis and how they affected you and what you learned from them.
James Lewis is conniving. He's a narcissist. He likes to hear himself talk. He did in the jailhouse interviews that I did with him. He has done so over the years in interviews he's done with other people. He's talked himself into a level of innocence here that is almost remarkable because it's so ignorant. But James Lewis is a man that you don't want to tangle with. He is somebody who is not to be trusted. Behind your back, he will say things about you that he wouldn't say to your face. And so Lewis is a guy that the authorities would like to see in court, in handcuffs, in an orange jumpsuit, having to answer for charges beyond just the extortion that sent him to prison for 10 years.
Wow. All right, Chuck, thank you so much. Fascinating insight, eye-opening, and so revealing. Even 40 years later, the mystery is still compromising with investigators and fascinating everybody. So thank you so much for joining us with the I-Team Insider, Chuck.
Cheryl, thanks for having me.
Hey, if you like that video, be sure to subscribe to our ABC7 Chicago YouTube channel.